Good evening. My name is Arelis Figueroa. I'm so excited to welcome you to our program this evening, Deep Canvas to Defeat Trump Town Hall, hosted by People Action and Student Action. Si necesita la traducción al español, siga el link que aparece en su pantalla. También siga el link en el chat. This is our final live stream before the election because we are only 7 days away from the most important election of our lifetime. So to start this evening, I'm so excited to introduce rapper and activist from Chicago, VIC MENSA.
Peace. I'm gonna perform a record called No More Teardrops for y'all. That's my spiel.
Thank you, Vic. Thank you so much for the powerful word and your music. We are grateful to have you in this movement with us. Everyone, stick around because we have an amazing program this evening. We will hear from Alessandro Ocasio Cortez, Bernie Sanders, Senator Robert Peter, and a final song for VIC Mensa. Okay? Stick around. As I said before, my name is Arelis Figueroa. I'm a member leader of Community Voices Heard. We are a multiracial organization that works to build power in your state through grassroots organizing. We want to also remind you that you can text WIN to 79606 to join our Deep Canvas program. Text WIN right now to 79606 to join our Deep Canvas program. So next up, we will hear from Lisette Chacon. She's the Executive Director of Colorado People's Action and Board President of People Action.
Gracias, Arelis. Bienvenidos a todos and welcome to the Deep Canvas to Defeat Trump Town Hall, co-hosted by People's Action and Student Action. We are so excited to be here in the final days of this critical election. Before we get started, I just want to repeat it one more time. Everyone, please take out your phone and text WIN to 79606 to join our Deep Canvas program. We came together in August to jointly launch our field program, not just to defeat Trump, but also to defeat Trumpism. On that call, I asked folks to share about what is at stake for them in this election. I shared what is at stake for me. Today, I want to ground us on what is at stake for all of us and what we have lost during this administration. For me, I have lost family members to deportation. I have lost a family member to COVID, and I have watched both of my parents struggle to receive the medical care that they need. And countless of our community members have been struggling to make ends meet before the pandemic, and especially now during COVID. And so that is why for us, it is critical that we fight to elect our own people, that we work on the down ballot races, and that we engage voters across the country to oppose business as usual politics, and that we build a movement that is focused on building governing power in order to create an economy that works for all of us, not just corporations. Deep canvassing is such a powerful way to connect with voters across the country, to forge a path forward to not only defeating Trump, but to moving forward a long-term agenda to dismantle the systems that are oppressing our communities and create ones that will put people first and that will prioritize Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge that 2 years ago today, a white nationalist fueled by anti-Semitism and xenophobia killed 11 people at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. The white nationalist movement has created an environment of violence against Jewish communities and also has fueled violence against people of color in so many other mass shootings across the country. None of us should forget this reality, and we can honor the memory of those that have been taken from us by coming together to create a new future. Our work also doesn't end on November 3rd. It is but the first step in our path for a just future, and we can't do this without each other. Remember, things didn't get bad because of Trump. Things were bad before Trump. They were bad before the pandemic, and together is how we can move forward our long-term agenda to win public control of the economy, a real democracy, racial justice, and global sustainability. People's Action is an organization of more than 40 state and local groups across 32 people. This cycle, we have made over 35 million voter contact attempts to reach people across the country. None of us should
including
forget
nearly
the 7 million phone calls using our deep canvas methodology. We're running the biggest electoral deep canvassing program in the history of this country, and we have 1 week to bring it home. Now is the moment for each of us to step up, not just for ourselves, but for our communities. In 2016, Trump won Michigan by 2 votes per precinct. That means that the deep canvas conversations you have in the next 7 days can truly help us have a different outcome this November 3rd. Back to you, Arelis.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz, for first of all, grant us in this moment, and also for bringing to life all the work that is ahead of us. 1 week, all the work that we need to do to defeat Trump, to defeat Trumpism, and what that means in the long term for us. So next up, we will hear from Dom Holmes and Canvas Manager at Pennsylvania Stand Up, and Mashima Halaji, a Canvas Manager from Down Home, North Carolina. They are 2 of the top deep canvassers in the country, and they will tell us about why we use deep canvassing and what exactly it is.
Hello, everyone. My name is Masma Halaji, and I'm an organizer with Down Home, North Carolina. Growing up as a first-generation immigrant in rural North Carolina, I saw my ability to share my authentic story with others deeply impacted by racial and economic divides. When I think about what drives me to do this work, I am reminded of the little girl that needed to find her voice and how deep canvassing has allowed me to help others find theirs. To me, this is true healing, to be the teller of our stories. We are no longer in a place to endure more division and separation from each other, especially in the rural South, where each political party has only focused on getting votes and in return neglected the importance of bridging the deadly gaps of race and class. My family, like many other immigrant families, came to this country because we believed in it before we ever even arrived. That dream is not dead, and the intentional divides in our communities can be transcended to defend the dream of freedom that flows through each of us. So many times we see in our country misunderstanding and judgment being promoted as the norm, whether from our media or our own president, telling us that we are divided and cannot understand one another, speaking over each other instead of listening compassionately to find a solution. Connection and solidarity is the only antidote to combat these divisions. Fear and hate can no longer win because we are stronger together. We have seen our communities come together during this pandemic and hold each other up as brother and sister. Even as our leaders have ignored us and left us to die, we have stayed resilient together. We know that in reality, we share each other's pains, regardless of whether we are white, Black, or brown. This is what I have learned from doing this work. We are all in need of healing and deeply need each other, regardless of the divisive narratives that have been sold to us. When we face the discomforts of discussing the impacts that race and class have had on our lives, we are closer to creating a different future for our children, a future where generations of all backgrounds and ages come together, making us stronger rather than weaker. At the end of the day, we all want the same things: dignity and a better quality of life for our children and loved ones. That is why, to me, deep canvassing is the way to heal these divides and open up possibility for a stronger we. When we can have conversations with vulnerability, genuine story sharing, and non-judgmental listening, we are bridging the same divides that our ancestors fought to see eradicated. Our stories speak volumes, and we can no longer let others tell it for us. I want to empower this evening all of you that are watching to reach out to someone that thinks differently than you and truly listen to them. This is a true radical act. I'm very grateful to be here with you all this evening. Together, I truly believe that we can heal our country the way that so many have fought for before us. I want to personally invite you to come and get engaged in this deep canvassing project in this last week so that we can truly have the we that we deserve. I'm now going to hand it Holmes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Moss. Just want to say so much that I resonated with there. You know, as a 23-year-old Black organizer here in central Pennsylvania, I've had a chance to see just how effective deep canvassing can be firsthand. I originally hail from the beautiful but embattled city of Baltimore, home of the Ravens. It's a place where the toxicity of the system is highlighted by communities like Park Heights, where impoverished Black folks live just mere blocks from wealthy, heavily policed white communities. It's home of the annual Preakness, for crying out loud. And I've never been to the Preakness, but I have seen loved ones who I've only ever known as honest, hardworking people of integrity be disintegrated and consumed by this toxic system. From seeing this injustice so plainly, especially after being fortunate enough to move to a different setting, I saw that something was seriously wrong. I got to move to suburban rural Pennsylvania where my white friends seemed to get different results in life from doing the same things that I did. I myself started to see that I was getting different results in life than my former friends back in Baltimore. Something wasn't right, and I wanted to fix it. As I was introduced to the method of deep canvassing, I was told that vulnerability and real emotional connection was the bridge to connect us all on some common issues that we face, albeit for different reasons. Because whether or not the root of our problems be our race, our country of origin, or our economic class, we all want the same things for ourselves and our loved ones, which is security, to be treated with dignity, and to put food on the table at the end of each day. I really didn't believe that deep canvassing was the way to get there. I thought to myself, these California liberals are truly different. Do they really think that discussing our feelings is going to get us somewhere? But I couldn't have been more wrong. I saw immediately the power in the conversations that I was having through being vulnerable and actually listening compassionately, and from a place of genuine curiosity. On my first door, I had a man with a Confederate flag flying on his porch answer who I was sure would answer with a shotgun. I was just sure of it. But we actually ended up having a deep, respectful, and meaningful conversation about the issues we faced. We connected, and it was meaningful. It was real. And I was convinced at that point that whatever I had been doing was no longer employable. It had to be deep canvassing from that point forward to mend the gap that had been sown between people like me and him, between the white wealthy community of Park Heights and Baltimore and the Black impoverished community of Park Heights and Baltimore. We needed to do this through real connection because politics is personal, and we ought to connect on a genuinely personal level when we discuss politics. Some of our leaders currently like to pretend that they are Superman because of their access to treatments that no other American currently has access to, but the real power comes from being able to be vulnerable and admit that we have problems that need to be addressed. It is okay to be vulnerable. It is okay to admit that we are collectively hurting right now. And the only way to heal and mend ourselves is to be able to talk together and really truly connect and be honest with each other. When we do this, we realize that we are not each other's enemies, and we have to set better examples and address the real root of our problems, which are those people that divide us. So I want to thank you all for being a part of this fight with me, and what an honor it is to be here with you all, because I am truly inspired by leaders like Senator Sanders and Representative Ocasio Cortez. And I can never find the words to quite express how much their work and passion have fueled me. But all I can say for now is thank you, and thank you to everyone that is here. I'm going to pass it over for us to watch a video that will explain a little bit more about what deep canvassing is. Thank y'all so much.
What is deep canvassing? Deep canvassing is one of the only proven strategies to move voters along the political spectrum. These conversations are 100 times more effective than other attempts to persuade voters in electoral campaigns. Deep canvassing means listening without judgment, sharing our own lived experiences, receiving voters' stories with compassion, and helping to process the conflict that voters are feeling. Judging conflicted voters or giving them facts just doesn't work. We must have heartfelt conversations that allow folks to share why they are conflicted or frustrated with our system. These conversations will help us win this election and heal our country so that we can move forward together. So that's what we've been doing at People's Action, changing hearts and minds through radical empathy. Join us.
Representation of what we do. I want to share an example of Thank you so much for sharing that video. I want to go into sharing a story of a conversation I had that has really stuck with me. I I'm thinking of a conversation I had with a gentleman named Popeye, who I spoke to last fall. Popeye, like many others that we speak to, started off in the conversation expressing how he felt betrayed by the leaders of his country for not taking care of folks by giving them access to healthcare. For him, the blame was to be placed on undocumented immigrants. This made me curious about his experience with immigrants. So I asked him if he shared stories of people that he knew when he was working at a mill in Burlington, North Carolina. This is a town where a lot of mills shut down. He worked with a lot of immigrants there who he assumed were undocumented, and eventually was laid off in a really harsh way without any notice. Everyone else lost their jobs also, and the mill was closed for good. He had never had an opportunity to ask these people he worked with what their stories were, which was understandable given that he was in a tight situation himself. It was really remarkable when I shared my own story as an immigrant with him and my family having to come and start over in a new country and what that felt like. Because when I did, he told me that he could relate to those feelings of having to just start somewhere and having the best hopes for yourself and your family. After my vulnerability and honesty, I saw him open up and be more empathetic in a really impactful way that I remember even until this moment. It seemed that we could talk as friends, even though many people that are different may not be able to in the same way. We had the same needs. It's so easy to draw assumptions and blame each other. We had this amazing and transformative moment where we found that two people like us could not relate. Not only did that move him to being more supportive on the scale, but it also made me feel like I had made a friend. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm going to pass it to Dom so that he could share some of his experiences with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mas. Really appreciate that. And a story that I often share because of its impact on me, similar to how you shared about Popeye, is a story of Michelle. Michelle is a single mother who I actually deep canvassed. She's a single mother with a 13-year-old son, and she lived in a very low-income community, literally 10 minutes from where I am right now. And before this pandemic, Michelle worked as a full-time administrative assistant during the day and part-time as a waitress at a local diner. And this was simply to break even and put food on the table to provide for herself and her son. Unfortunately for her, her son was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. For her, the only saving grace was that she had health care because of her full-time job, and he had to undergo chemotherapy. This was before the pandemic, keep in mind. He was quarantined as a 13-year-old because catching the common cold or flu would be deadly for him. Luckily, this chemotherapy was the only thing that could provide him some sense of stability in his health. After some time had passed, someone sitting at a desk at the insurance company decided that their file was for some reason not aligned with the company's standards and dropped them from coverage. Maybe she made a mistake when filing. Maybe she missed a payment. But the fact is the insurance company left her sick 13-year-old son out in the cold when she needed them most. Just like that. Michelle shared she had no idea what she was going to do. And just knowing that, just hearing that story, I know that I am not that far from where they are. No one chooses to get sick, and hardly any of us are prepared for what comes if we do get sick. I know I'm not prepared. And so this is a problem. We need leadership to solve this problem. And we need leadership that understands what it's like to be in these situations where health crises fall upon us and our loved ones, and that can connect to that struggle. Deep canvassing is what ties it all together when we can share and connect on experience like Michelle's and like Popeye's. And we need to really connect to find solutions. And solutions are what people like Michelle and her son deserve and need. So thank y'all so much for being here and being a part of the solution, because we really need you. We need all hands on deck to find solutions for people like Michelle and Popeye and Michelle's son. So thank you so much. I'm going to toss it back over to Aurelius. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Don and Massima. It's amazing that we get to learn from you both, from both of you, and thank you for sharing the stories, and that I know that many of us can relate. I relate as an immigrant also. Again, remember that you can text WIN to 79606 now to join our deep canvassing Canvas program. Okay. Now, I am so thrilled to introduce our guest speaker who will be answering questions from as a part of our town hall. First, it is my honor to introduce Illinois State Senator Robert Peter, representing the 13th district in Chicago. Senator Peter is also a former director of one of our member organizations, the People's Lobby. So she's going to share his perspectives on the moment we are in.
Good evening. I'm of the Illinois 13th district, which stretches from downtown Chicago along the lakefront to the Indiana border. 2020 has been a very difficult year. We're in the midst of three crises: a crisis in public health with a pandemic, an economic crisis, and a crisis with systemic racism, particularly in law enforcement. These crises aren't telling us anything new, but are highlighting longstanding issues. I know this personally. I was born during Reagan's racist war on drugs in 1985, and my biological mom was addicted to drugs and alcohol. I was forced into adoption, adopted by Tom Peters, a civil rights lawyer, Cynthia Michaelis, a social worker. I was born deaf and developed a massive speech impediment. My dad's work focused on police violence, and my mom struggled with alcoholism and mental health issues. There were times when I didn't feel like I could go home, especially after my parents' divorce. But I had neighbors who kept their doors open. I had friends I could hang with at the local park. But I had that sense of real safety and dignity. But for over 30 years, we have seen our communities face mass disinvestment, seen ourselves left to bootstraps that don't exist, and we've seen mass incarceration grow. So here we are, three major crises mismanaged by President Trump. In the district I represent, I've seen a safety net hospital with a rich owner that primarily serves Black women threatened to close during a pandemic. Our healthcare system isn't working for us. It works for a select few that are making money hand over fist. In the state of Illinois, we have billionaires pumping millions of dollars against a fair tax amendment that will force them to finally pay their fair share. This is at the same time as we face upward of 500,000 people on the verge of eviction. They don't care about us. They don't care about the services people desperately need right now. Cook County Jail was one of the largest COVID hotspots in the country. Thousands are locked into cages inside of our county jail. We have a system of cash bond that only proves that someone is guilty of being poor. Pay up and you get to pass go is not about public safety. Our system of cash bond is the intersection of race, class, and gender converging with our system of mass incarceration. If we want real public safety, then we need healthcare, housing, a good job, and a union with living wages. So we must defeat Donald Trump. We must defeat Donald Trump to give us the space to keep building. If we want to win Medicare for all, housing for all, and a Green New Deal, it most definitely won't happen with Donald Trump as president. He is a narcissist and an authoritarian who is willing to get people sick, destroy our environment, and undermine our healthcare. We know Joe Biden is movable. His climate justice plan isn't the Green New Deal, but it's good. He made serious commitments during the last debate, and we can hold him accountable. We have a beautiful movement with beautiful people committed to an amazing and inspiring vision about what our world can be. Our communities deserve real safety, real justice, and dignity. And our path to that world is to defeat Donald Trump, defeat his movement down ballot, and get our people in power. So thank you. Go out to vote, work to get people to go vote, and back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Peter. Thank you for your kind words, for your openness, and for everything that you have done as a leader with People Action Network over the years, and now as a senator. So before we dive into questions for our town hall, And as I'm calling you from my home in New York City, I'm thrilled to introduce our Congresswoman, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, to the virtual stage.
Hello, thank you so much. And thank you, Arelis, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, every single one of you who's on here on this call, particularly for what we are convening for today, which is deep canvassing. And one of the things that we know about deep canvassing is that it is intensely more effective than your traditional door-to-door or I guess in this era, call-to-call type of canvassing. And the reason that deep canvassing is so effective is that, yes, it may be a little bit slower, but it's because we are taking the time, human connection, and sharing meaningful human experiences with other people. And so the thing about deep canvassing is that once we are able, and once you are able to make that kind of real human connection, it becomes very, very difficult to undo that experience. And I think that one of the things that is so important too is for us to actually recognize that despite the destruction and a lot of the horror that we've seen this year, we've also had unprecedented progress in social movements across the United States. And it's hard for us to, I think, see it and recognize it right now in this moment. But if you take a minute to go back and appreciate all of the moments that we've been through this year, they could have gone in a very different way, whether it was the movement for Black Lives and essentially our national conversation on police brutality, or whether it was the realizations in this pandemic that healthcare as a human right is not radical, that guaranteeing people's ability to live a dignified life is not a huge radical idea, but that all of these things are completely within our possibility. We have had major, major successes this year in exactly the kind of thing that deep canvassing is all about. And you can see it in the polling. A record number of Americans now believe in Medicare for all and believe that that's the right path for our future. Despite millions, if not billions of dollars of fossil fuel money and lobbying and media campaigns to smear the Green New Deal, a majority of people still believe in this country that a Green New Deal is the right way forward. And so it just goes to show the power that you all have in shifting the public consciousness in a radically new direction in a very short period of time. And this type of work is exactly the kind of work that we're going to need even the day after the election, to continue beating that drum, because our political establishment is only as useful as how much we organize and pressure it to act. And so I'm looking forward to seeing you all on the other side of this election, for us to continue to organize, to care for one another, and for building a better world that we know is possible, and that's one that we deserve. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your powerful word, Alexandra. We are so grateful. We are so proud of you for leading by example. And we are so honored to be with you in this movement. Next, I'm honored, more than honored, to introduce someone who doesn't need introduction, right? The one and only Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you very much. And let me thank all of those who have put on this important event and those who are watching. Let me give you the bad news and the good news. The bad news is, as you already know, we are living through a terrible, terrible pandemic. The bad news is that as a result of the pandemic, we have an economic collapse, which has cost millions and millions of people their jobs. The bad news is that we continue to have systemic racism and police brutality, which must be addressed. The bad news is that as we speak, climate change is ravaging the world and our West Coast. Millions of acres are being burned up. And on top of all of that, we have a president of the United States who is not only a pathological liar and a racist and a sexist and a homophobe and a xenophobe and you name it, who does not believe in science, but he is an authoritarian who is undermining American democracy and leading the effort to suppress the vote. That is pretty bad news. But I want to give you the good news, and it's the point that Alexandria just made. And the good news is that over the last number of years, what we have seen is an enormous growth in grassroots activism all over this country, organization after organization. Now, where we differ from establishment Democrats is they raise a whole lot of money, and that's fine. And they put most of that money into consultants and into 30-second TV ads. Now, I'm not going to knock TV ads. I've used them. I've spent millions of dollars on TV ads, and they have a place. But what we know at the end of the day, what is far more effective is grassroots organizing, is deep canvassing. It is communicating with working class people about our common humanity. It is understanding that when we knock on a door or via telephone or wherever we may do it, that almost everybody that we come in contact with, every working class, every low income person needs healthcare as a human right. They need the opportunity to have their kids get a decent education from childcare to graduate school, no matter what the income of their families are. They need health care as a human right. And more people understand that it is totally absurd that we are spending twice as much per capita on health care as the people of any other country, while 90 million people today are uninsured or underinsured. The function of health care is not to make insurance companies and drug companies billions in profit. It is to guarantee healthcare to all of our people as a human right. And the American people do understand that we have got to address the existential threat of climate change, and that we can, through a Green New Deal, create millions of good-paying jobs, transforming our energy system. And the American people do know that our political system is corrupt, and God knows that our election system, where people have to wait 5 hours to vote or may not even get their ballots counted, is corrupt, that it needs change. So the bad news is we've got a whole lot of obstacles in front of us, and we are taking on people who have enormous power and unimaginable wealth. But the good news is that in recent years, all across this country, young people and working class people and people of color have stood up for justice and understand that we cannot have a sustainable economy or nation when so few have so much and so many have so little. So we are the future. Our movement is the future. And we are growing stronger every day. We're electing great progressives, not only for Congress, but for district attorney, for prosecutors, state legislatures, all across this country. So we have got less than a week into this election. It is absolutely imperative that in the last few days, we all do everything we can to bring out the vote and to defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. Thank you all very much for what you're doing.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. You are indeed an inspiration to all of us. And we will continue building this movement, and we know you are with us. Now we will open for question. And first we have Lorenzo Gomez, a student organizer with Living United for Change in Arizona, who would like to ask Senator Sanders a question. Lorenzo?
Hi, Senator. My name is Lorenzo Gomez. I'm 19 years old, and I'm a student organizer with Lucha, or Living United for Change in Arizona. I've been making calls alongside thousands of youth, primarily of color, because it is crucial that this election represents all of our values and struggles accurately. You know, yes, we're Black, we're brown, we're working class, but we're also DACA recipients. We have disabilities, we're single parents. We don't fit into the gender binary. We don't fit into these limiting boxes that we're placed in. And finding myself among these at-risk communities, the anxiety that I have as a student organizer, it doesn't just come from being nervous to talk to new people, but it comes from the fact that I know that not all these people will accept my own intersecting identities. But the true reality is I know that there are kids out there doubting the worth of their voice and experience, just like I once did. So my question to you is, how do we let them know that their voices and their stories are powerful in this change that we're fighting for?
Well, I think the lesson that all of us have got to learn, it's what Nelson Mandela told us. And that is that everything is impossible until it is done. If the big changes that have taken place, whether it's the right of women to have the right to vote, whether it's African Americans having the right to vote, people were telling them throughout history, it can't happen. Don't be ridiculous. You can't take on the establishment. You're asking for too much. You're thinking too big. So I think it is important to examine history and see how progressive change has been made. And I think it's also important to emphasize our common humanity. What the right wing tries to do is divide us up based on the color of our skin or where we were born or our sexual orientation. What we do is stress the fact that all of us are entitled to health care. We're all going to need health care at some point in our life. That all of us are entitled to work at jobs that pay us a living wage. That education is a human right. That all people, no matter what the color of their skin, have the right to walk the streets without fear of police brutality. So unlike the right wing who tries to divide us up, Lorenzo, what we are trying to do is bring people together. It doesn't matter whether you're gay, you're straight, you're old, you're young, you're Black, you're white, Latino, whatever you may be. We believe that all people are entitled to economic rights, they're entitled to human rights, they're entitled to a clean environment. And I think that is the message that we take forward. And I will tell you that despite everything, the majority of the American people believe in our message. They know that if you work 40 hours a week, you should not live in poverty. They know that when you get sick, you should be able to go to a doctor regardless of your income. So I am confident that our message is in fact gaining support every single day. And we are taking on the divisiveness of Trump, trying to divide us up. We're bringing people together. And I think that message of a common humanity, no matter where we are, where we come from, the color of our skin, we are entitled to basic human rights. So Lorenzo, congratulations on the work you are doing. Keep going forward. Let's win not only this election, but after the election, let us continue going forward to transform this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Sanders and Lorenzo. Next, Ravi Karabarti, a Deep Canvas volunteer leader with People Action, would like to ask a question to Senator Robert Peter.
Hi, Senator Peters. This is Ravi. I go by he, him. I'm also from Chicago. I've been volunteering for almost about 10 weeks now, at least 3 times a week, because I have that privilege when so many people do not have that. Deep canvassing was difficult for me at first. I was trying to connect with a voter over healthcare. I had my first breakthrough moment when I shared a personal story about someone infected with COVID to move this voter from leaning Trump to leaning Biden. I felt really vulnerable sharing the story with a stranger over the phone at that time. I'm wondering, as someone who's been in this movement for over a decade, what can you share with volunteers who are nervous to share their personal stories with strangers and feeling their judgment? Why do you think that story sharing is so critical to this work? And what do you suggest to people to feel not insecure about it?
Yeah, so let me first say thank you so much for volunteering, and thank you for being part of this movement and organizing. To me, I think about the fact that how I even got started in this is the fact that the Great Recession hit. I couldn't find a job, and I went to go work on a local campaign. The next thing you know, I was just like, all right, I got to keep doing this, and I got to keep building and keep organizing. So thank you for doing that. On the question about sharing the story, I think that we live in a world built on shame, built on the fact that your story or whatever you're going through, it's either so bad you're not allowed to share it, or it's rude to share it, or maybe someone else supposedly has it worse than you. It's all bullshit. Let me just say that matter of factly. I don't think people necessarily like it, but it's bullshit. The shame allows people who are very powerful to essentially prevent you from acting out of your own interest, your own very real self-interest. And it's understandable. It's really, for the longest time, to give you an idea, just talking about my story here in front of so many people made me so anxious, so nervous. I got cotton mouth. I was like, Jesus, I got the driest mouth going on. That was in front of so many people. I still get that to this day. But what I know is that there are so many people who share the same level of pain and struggle that I'm going through, and that they need to hear that I have gone through this and that we can connect over that. And I think that's why it's so important to share your story or to listen to people's stories, because it's our ability to connect and our ability to bond and our ability to grow and organize together. And it's part of us collectively building. And, I guess to put it nicely, it's a proverbial middle finger to the man, you know what I mean? And so I think, in terms of organizing, the thing I care most about, the thing I tell my staff, the thing I tell young people is I want to know your story, because I'm sure we have something in common that's been painful in this world. And I'm sure that we also have something in common on what we want to build. And if we can do that together and we know where we're coming from, we can really change this world. So thank you for this question. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you, People's Action. And for everybody who's out there, who's watching this or listening to this, your story, it's powerful. It's something for you to own. Don't let anybody else own that. Share that story in a real deep way. Connect with people. That's our one way to really sort of start building the collective world we need. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Senator Peter. Yes, indeed. Everybody has a story, and it's powerful to share our story. Now we have a question from Sara Castro. She's a volunteer with Student Action, and she would like to ask Congresswoman Ocasio Cortez a question.
Hi, my name is Sara Castro. I'm a student leader with Student Action. We're a movement of young people fighting for free college for all. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. Back in 2016, I wasn't old enough to vote, but I remember how awful election night felt. I didn't know about organizing, and I felt hopeless. And that's how I started college, feeling hopeless. But this election feels different for me. Volunteering and organizing with Student Action this fall, we've already contacted over 500,000 students across the country. And by election day, we'll have reached over 800,000 young people committed to defeating Trump. So now I'm not scared, I'm hopeful. I've talked to hundreds of students on the phone as a volunteer with Student Action, and I know that our generation is hungry to keep organizing and build the progressive movement we need to win a people and planet first world. So Representative Ocasio Cortez, can you speak to your vision for what type of movement we need to build the day after the election and how we go about building it?
Well, Sara, thank you for this question. I am thrilled that you are asking it because it's the right question that we should be asking. You know, year after year, organizing is treated as something that is a uniquely electoral exercise. And the problem is that if we are only organizing for elections, we're losing and we're not going to win the world that we need and that we're fighting for. And so your question about what kind of organizing is going to be needed the day after the election is, you know, frankly, one of the most important questions that we should be asking ourselves. Because listen, I'll pour some cold water. I don't think this is surprising to anyone that's on this call, but it might be a shocker to hear for anyone who might be tuning in. But, you know, if we get everything we want on election day, let's say we just, you know, and I'm knocking on wood here, but let's say the most favorable outcome possible happens. We win the House, we win the Senate, we win the presidency. We're still not going to get what we're fighting for unless we work for it, because it's not just set to happen. I'm sorry, I wish it was different, but the Democratic Party is not predisposed to guarantee healthcare. They are not predisposed for unprecedented climate action. They are not predisposed to stand up to big pharma. They're not predisposed to confront Wall Street about the looting and the billions of dollars that they give to CEOs and corporations at the expense of working class people and paying people a living wage. Sure, there's a lot of rhetoric about it, but when you act that a lot of the Democratic Party would agree on, it's not good enough. They're not policies that are going to substantively change a lot of people's lives. Now, does that mean that we throw it all out the window? Absolutely not. What it means is that November 4th is the day that we start bringing the ruckus on the Democratic Party. That is our job. And the day that we win this election, and I'm going to claim it, right? We have to organize, we have to work for it. It's not going to happen by itself, but we have to be optimistic right now. And, you know, let's claim it. Let's say we're going to win on November 3rd. November 4th is when we have to start mobilizing in a big way. Do not trust any political party to automatically work in your interests. All of Washington is not incentivized, on the whole, not incentivized to work in actually expediting guaranteed healthcare in the United States. Now, does that mean it's not going to happen? Absolutely not, because mass movement organizing can force it to happen. That's how we got Medicare in the first place. That's how we got Social Security in the first place. Back when college was affordable, once upon a time, it was student movements that helped preserve that. And it is mass movements that are largely responsible for the greatest policy leaps that our country has had. And so my answer to you is the kind of organizing that we are going to need is going to be oppositional. Everyone's going to try to tell you that if you're just a little bit nicer, then it'll be fine. No, don't accept that. Don't back down. Politicians are not your friends, and they are people that you are supposed to extract demands from and protest from. It doesn't matter what party they're a part of. And I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that, but it's the truth, because neither party is predisposed to the demands of working people. And that's why we organize, because this is not a set it and forget it thing. If we organize to elect a Democratic majority in the House and the Senate, and we organize to win back the presidency, and we do all of that on election day, and then we walk away, we're not gonna get anything done. Nothing's gonna happen. The Democratic Party does not do more unless it is pushed. So we need to push them. And they don't like it. I think I annoy them, but but that is our job. That's our job.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, organize, organize, organize. And our friend in the homeless movement said, you only get what you organize to take. So thank you, Congresswoman Ocasio. Thank you, Senator Peter. Thank you, Senator Sander, for your powerful remark about what we need to do, right, in these next 7 days to defeat Trump. I want to come next for the movement. A special thank you also for our volunteers who brought such a thoughtful question and for this discussion tonight. I would like to pass now to Lisette Chacon again, who will outline our path forward together. Lisette.
Gracias, Arelis. So we are only 7 days away from the most important election of our lifetimes, and we have a lot of work to do. In the final 4 days of this election, we're aiming to make 500,000 calls to conflicted voters in battleground states. And we can only achieve this goal if you join us. So we will be running daily deep canvas training. So no matter your schedule, we are sure we can match you with the time that works for you. We have an incredible group of staff and volunteer leaders who are ready to help you get involved. So here's how you can get involved. Text WIN to 79606 to join our Deep Canvas program and receive updates from us. Sign up for Deep Canvas training and phone banks hosted by People's Action with our local member organizations and national partners, Seed the Vote and Not Him, Us, by going to the website, and I'm gonna spell it out, but I know they'll put it on the chat and in different places so you can find it easily. It's bpls.ac-phones and sign up. And I'm going to be making a big ask here because that is what it's going to take for us to win. And so I'm asking you to sign up for at least 4 phone bank shifts in the next final 7 days so that we can ensure we defeat Trump. Student Action, the student arm of People's Action, in hundreds of thousands of students across the country. So if you are a high school student or a college student, you can get involved with Student Action and sign up at ppls.ac/studentgotv. And again, it's going to be on the chat and in different places so you can easily find this link to sign up to volunteer. And so nothing is for sure right now. And we have to work until the last minute to make sure that we win this election. And so thank you for joining us. And I hope to see you all at one of our phone banking events. Back to you, Arelis.
Thank you. Well, we have our marching orders, right? This evening we have been inspired, we have been challenged, and now we have in charge. This is our moment. And we are the one, right? We are the ones who need to do this work. And we have nothing to lose but our change. So let's do it together. Now, while we are signing up to volunteer, we're gonna listen again to VIC MENSA, who will close out with his amazing song, We Could Be Free. Thank you.